This is the Digital Marketing Experts Podcast episode. No, why am I trying to sound like a radio announcer?
Experts on the Wire, episode 117. J.R. Oakes. Hey everyone, welcome to episode 117 of Experts on the Wire. My guest today is J.R. Oakes. He is the Senior Director of Technical SEO Research at Locomotive Agency and has written for sites like Search Engine Land, Search Engine Watch, spoken at SEMpdx and TechSEO Boost, and is the founder of iCodeSEO. He's also an organizer with the Beer and SEO and Raleigh SEO Meetups. We have a fantastic episode for you today. You're going to learn all about how JR analyzes large sets of keyword data, how to use automation to improve your SEO, why sometimes ugly sites can rank, and JR describes in detail how to use internal linking to boost traffic on keywords not quite ranking number one. This is a really powerful and detailed strategy that JR talks about. They've actually seen a 50 to 60% lift on sites after a full year of this implementation. And towards the end, you'll even find out what JR's real name is. It's a great episode. We did record it back in May 2020, but it's still all up to date. We took a bunch of questions from you, the listener, on Twitter. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 117 of Experts on the Wire. JR, how are you?
Great. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. I wanted to jump right in and kind of chat about your background a little bit. I was listening to your interview on the Edge of the Web, and I think if I heard this correctly, you mentioned that you were a glass artist.
Yeah, I spent my first 10 years first as an architectural glass artist, then essentially running a studio for the latter part of that time before moving into my kind of second life or second love, which was development, and then into technical SEO.
What is that exactly, an architectural glass artist? Is that more that you're making actual art in glass, or are you designing and it is a very much more technical thing?
It's it's architectural, meaning it's not like glass sculpture that you would see in a it's part of buildings and part of infrastructure, right? Mm-hmm. So we did work for the U.S. Army, for Coach K, and for the SAS and the Goodnight family in Raleigh. But essentially, it was you select different types of glass, get a general kind of aesthetic that you're looking for. And then we would go through more of an ideation phase and essentially use different glass media to put together really interesting concepts, mostly in either leaded glass, which is a really old glass form, as well as more kind of modern etched and carved glass. Like we'd have 1-inch thick pieces of glass that we would carve herons into, and just really beautiful detail.
Oh, wow.
Really, really cool stuff. I really enjoyed that.
Does that impact how you approach anything having to do with web development or SEO? I mean, it sounds like this sort of, on one hand, very technical thing, but also on another hand, very artistic thing. So is that something where using the whole brain and that sort of approach has impacted your SEO work?
Yeah, I think having a design background and having just the concept of the design process, I think, is instructive. I mean, because the design process is to first do research and then just iterate, right? Like do thousands. It was Johnny Ives with Apple. He would do just thousands and thousands of prototypes to get the right one. So I think that does influence, and I also think there's an aesthetic to it, where even like presentation of technical data to people, I think I draw back to some of the design principles to say, is this really clean? Is this really understandable? Is this really the best story to tell? So I do think that helped prepare me to be more adept at what I'm doing now, even though it's different.
And then you said you just started doing web development. and this was your interview on Edge of the Web. And I was curious about that because how did you start doing web development? And did you just self-teach yourself? You said you started doing WordPress websites. Yeah,
I mean, I found myself on the weekends just developing. Like I used to build things in Flash back in the day, Dreamweaver. I think it was Adobe Go Live, and I just really enjoyed that. And that kind of became my hobby. Most people have glasswork as a hobby, and I had glasswork as a profession. And then I started doing web development as a hobby. And then that hobby just kind of became a new passion of mine. And yeah, I really enjoyed what you could really quickly wireframe up and build and deploy to the web and have just a really wide audience.
And at some point, somebody asked you to lead an SEO team or to join an SEO team, but you said no at first because you said you really like the web development side of things. What then changed your mind? What actually led to you saying yes to do SEO officially? Well,
when I got the opportunity to transition a company on front page to WordPress and work from home. And this was about the time that my first daughter was going into kindergarten. And it was an agency that was a remote agency, right? And it was a really cool agency. I was there for about a year and led the entire WordPress transition, maybe a year and a half. And then I was asked to lead SEO for that team. And I did not want to do SEO. I love development. Development is my bread and butter.
Yeah.
But I like SEO too. And I like development because I think they work well together. The web is data, right? The web is technology. And the more you know about development and technology, the more you understand the web and the more you understand SEO. From my point of view.
Yes.
I think, coming in and just seeing the benefits and seeing us applying things and structuring testing and structuring development to support data gathering and putting insights in front of us that could be actioned on. I think that got me really excited.
And you're currently at Locomotive Agency, correct?
That's right.
Is that the same or is that different than Adapt Agency?
Right. So Adapt won the U.S. Small SEO Agency of the Year in October of last year, and then directly changed our name.
Okay. So it's the same agency then?
Yeah. So it actually started, I think, as Adapt Partners and was that way for a while. And Marty bought out his partner at some point, and then I think Locomotive was something that just was really meaningful to him and what he saw as kind of a really future looking brand for the company. So decided to make that change.
And what is your role at Locomotive? I know it has to do with data analysis and, like you already have talked about, programming and things like that, but what exactly is your role and responsibilities there?
So my title is the Senior Director of Technical SEO Research. My day-to-day role is just being involved in the direction of the company, like where we focus training with team members and really pushing us to everyone to have skill sets and focuses that really fit well with where SEO is heading. And then I do just a lot of our proof of concept and research and development, as well as manage a few clients, more of our some of our really more enterprise level clients.
So is Locomotive essentially an agency that does SEO for clients? And
That's
what
right.
You're saying is you're sort of training the internal people in Locomotive on how to do SEO better for the clients at large?
You got it. And we have some just incredible team members and really hungry team members that want to be pushed want to learn, want to be challenged with things. So I see that as one of my main goals, is just to put challenges in front of great people.
Awesome. So we're going to chat a lot about other topics like coding and SEO and automation and things like that. But first, I was wondering, and I'm kind of doing this ad hoc a little bit because I think it'd just be an interesting little discussion, because I've seen other people ask on Twitter and run surveys, how would you define technical SEO, right? So I think some people, when they hear technical SEO, they might think one thing, some people think another, but what's your sort of personal definition or just outlook on what technical SEO is and what that means?
Russ Jones did a definition at TechSEO Boost in 2017, which was pretty broad. I mean, that it was essentially anything that was sufficiently technical in nature with the intent of improving organic search results was technical SEO. So that's a pretty obviously broad umbrella with which you see crawling, rendering, JavaScript SEO. I tend to think that if you really care about coding and development, whether that's building just incredible reporting using attribution or using SQL, or whether you're coding and running machine learning models, or whether you just are able to understand the development and the coding process enough to talk directly with developers and they listen to you and know that you know what you're talking about. I think those are the areas that I think technical SEO tends to be in my mind.
Do you think that somebody needs to know how to code to be a good technical SEO? Because sometimes, I hear different debates out there like, you're not a good technical SEO if you can't actually code. I don't know if I agree with that. What's your take on that? Like, can you actually be a good technical SEO without being a developer?
I think you can be a good anything without being a good developer. I think development helps, for me at least. Like technical SEO to me is becoming like SEO was years ago, where SEO was, you had a lot of generalists when it first started, and then it kind of broadened out to local and content and link building and on page and all these different aspects, and people kind of got certain skill sets within those areas. I think technical SEO is the same way, is that you have people that are doing more machine learning stuff, really advanced data and analytics stuff, really focusing on the JavaScript and rendering side of things, or really focusing on the crawling side of things. So I think there's specializations within that. And I think certain specializations may not require as much code as others. If you're going to build machine learning models and that's really an interest for you, and you want to see how to apply that to SEO and technical SEO, you have to know how to code, or you can't do that.
Right. By the way, I have my Tech SEO Boost mug from the last
great.
Tech SEO Boost.
I love that.
I've been drinking my mushroom coffee with it. So I want to ask you about some coding and SEO. Speaking of coding and programming, so there's a site that I had never even stumbled on before, iCodeSEO. That's i.codeseo.dev. What exactly is this site? Is this just information? Is there actual code in here? Like, how might somebody use this site? What is exactly iCodeSEO?
So I built that, or I started that with the goal of just having a repository for a lot of the really cool information in information retrieval, JavaScript, as well as different code that people were kind of publishing all over the place, right? So Hamlet's produced a large number of code. I think there's been a uptick over the last year in these really amazing articles on Search Engine Journal, Search Engine Land, that have a full article about things and then have an associated notebook or collab so people can read the article, understand it, and then go practice on it, right? So essentially, it's putting together some more Wikipedia style information on like information retrieval and things, and then also serving as a repository for those types of articles and code bases, where if somebody is really interested in Python and they're interested in crawling stuff, right, then we want to list different repositories that people have built and explained to be able to do that. Yeah.
So it's like a curation, because for example, I'm under Python code examples, and I clicked on data extraction, and then there's an article and a link to, I believe, the source code from somebody that developed a way to scrape. People also ask from Google search.
Yeah.
So as an SEO, like, what do I do with this? I can obviously read the article, but then, so I need to know I need to know something about using Python code, which, by the way, I know nothing about.
Right.
It's something I'd like to learn. That's why I use the show sometimes to talk to people like yourself to kind of learn that and share that with the audience. So let's say I have never used Python, which is true for me. What do I do with this? I'm under source and I click on link, and that takes me to a GitHub of a whole bunch of files, which I do understand. Obviously, I know HTML and what all these files are, but what do I do with this to then make use of it?
I think I don't think the audience is very general for that, right? To be honest.
Yeah.
I think I think more and more, or at least what I'm seeing and where the area that I care about is obviously more developer focused, right? And I'm fine being part of the developer focused part of SEOs, right? The segment of SEOs that care about development, right? And more than likely those SEOs are going, let's say, out of the whole pie of, 1 million SEOs, let's say, 50,000 of them care about development or like to develop or like to code or like to work on projects on the weekend, right?
Yeah.
That's more who that's for, right? That they know Python, they've played around with Python, they understand how to use a GitHub repo, right? And then they go there, and then there's something that just explains it to them. That's, from a developer standpoint, that's one of the pain points for developers, right? Yeah. You'll see something cool on GitHub, and then there's not really good documentation, right? There's not something that explains, this is how you run this is how this works, this is why this is an important thing, right? Yeah. So that's the reason why it's important to have that. We want things kind of explained through some type of article, so that a developer doesn't have to dig through what you said, the 1,500 files that are in something, but that they can really easily read through an article, take the code, and then test out what they just read in the article. But yeah, I mean, it is not for SEOs who it's not for SEOs who haven't to this point spent a lot of time doing any coding. It is for the ones that that's more like, I code like 2 or 3 hours on the weekends, right? Yeah. I just enjoy it.
So let's back up one step and then speak to the people that might look at what you were doing, or Hamlet or Brittany or anybody, and they look at that and they say, I want to be doing that. I want to be the one coding on the weekends or trying out these GitHub things. Where does one sort of begin? And that actually ties into one of the first questions we had from Twitter from Adam Humphreys. He says, where would one start on this journey to build out all these Python APIs, or maybe not even build, but just learn? Right. So let's speak to that small sliver of SEO that might want to get more into coding and integrating that into their SEO work.
So I think from my perspective, like, I obviously started out with PHP, right? I did WordPress and I understood that. I spent like a week and I read the entire WordPress codex, right? Yep. Front to back. So I understood all the functions. I understood what everything did, right?
Yes.
And then I moved.
A great tip.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's so much stuff that's been built into that. Like, you can build almost literally anything with WordPress because of how extensive the functions and functionality are throughout the code base. But then I went to R, and then I knew nothing about R, right? So I just started searching for tutorials online for R, right? And downloading code. And, there's a lot of things on Medium where people have done intros to certain languages or intros to certain repos that you can follow through, and I think, I don't, for me, I think part of it is there's I think I'm going to get the author's name wrong, but there's a book called the War of Art. I think it was Stephen Pressman.
And is that a purpose play on the art of war, which is
exactly, which was recommended to me years ago, and one of the things out of that is just, I think with a lot of coding is that there is like this thing that people want to do.
Yeah.
And if you really want to do it, right, you're going to just start, right? That was the whole thing of the War of Art, is that it's like people put things in front of themselves, right? People put reasons, well, I'll do this next week. Well, I'll do this in 2 weeks from now, right?
Right.
With coding, for me, it's like we're on Google,
have to do
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you get after it, right? You can search, how do I learn Python, right? You'll literally have 5,000 articles come up in ranked order, and just get started, right?
Yeah.
So I think more often, like everything's there. Like you can go on Udemy. What is it, Udemy or
Code Academy?
Code Academy or Udacity or
there's all kinds of places. Yep.
Yeah, and it's like you have like some of the most important machine learning researchers in the world doing free courses on there, where they take you through installing Anaconda all the way to writing models on things, right?
Yeah.
And like a paced 15 session course. So I think the stuff's there, but I think it's like that's something that's really critical, I think you just do it.
Yeah. So like, in other words, you're saying if you want to use some of this code on GitHub, go to Google and search, how do I use GitHub code? Or something like that, right? It's basically like this person that wants to do that will seek it out.
I think people, if they want to do it, they'll seek out how to do it, right? Like Python, you said HTML.
Oh yeah, or most, some PHP and
PHP, right? Yeah, and I think Python's no different. It's the same thing as PHP, right? The language structure is different, but it has for loops. It has a lot of the same structure is there that you need to think through with PHP is there in Python. What what you have to become familiar with is the nuances of the language, right? So I think probably like either Code Academy or probably some of the Udacity or some of the online courses, or even I can't think of the name of it, but there's another.
There's edX as well.
What is it?
edX.
Yep. Yeah. I think for some of those, I would just test out 3 or 4 or 5 of the online courses and just start the first class and just see which one I felt like was more intuitive for me to step through stuff.
Yeah.
When I really wanted to learn additional items.
Yeah. I think what's funny is because my memory of trying to learn code, and I kind of like my type of coding was duct taping things together, back in 2008 or 2009. I built a couple of e-commerce websites with PHP, but they were very hacked together. My memory and experience of that, where there were not this ubiquitous amount of courses and resources out there. And it was very different back then. So I think just personally for me and maybe others, I need to update what my knowledge and awareness is of the resources out there. They're much more plentiful nowadays to learn how to code than they were back then. There's another interesting question from David Sautimano, if that's how I say his last name. He wants to know, what is your current IDE?
I use Atom, which is, I think, a native React app.
Mm-hmm. And that's integrated development environment, right? IDE?
That's right.
Okay.
That's right. But I like Atom because it has remote functionality. It has the command line. It has local file system. It has GitHub integration.
And this might be a silly question. Does that depend upon your operating system that you're using? Is that like a PC thing, or?
I think Atom is PC and or Mac because it's React Native. It's
Okay.
I think it's hardware agnostic, but that's my personal preference. I know Hamlet uses Visual Studio Code as his preference. I started in Aptana, which is one of is maybe like a 10-year-old IDE, but I like I have to have. I'm not a like a C++ developer. I'm more like to put things together from a research and development standpoint and hand off to people who are professional developers to do the real heavy lifting and testing. But my requirements are FTP, a command line, local file system, and GitHub. And Atom has all of those, and it's a really beautiful interface.
Yeah, that's great. I wanted to talk a little bit about keyword analysis using the Search Console data and pulling data with the API.
Yeah.
You talked about this in the Edge of the Web, so I'm going to go like maybe a slight layer deeper than you did with their discussion. People can go back and listen to that episode. I'll put the link in the show notes. But you did talk about, I believe, using word embeddings and a clustering algorithm to categorize keywords from Search Console. Can you just describe exactly what that is, what that means, and what its purpose is for?
Yeah. So obviously, one of the things that I don't like, or one of the things that's really good about the Search Console API rather than the UX is that with the UX, I think they're giving more results now, like up to 1,500 results for a site.
Yeah.
But with the API, I can go back a month, and for some sites, we might have 500,000 or 600,000 queries that site has either shown impressions for or gotten clicks from over the course of whatever your time span that you're pulling. So obviously there's not a lot you can do with 500,000 queries to make sense of that.
So you get this benefit of more data, but then the con of that is you need to figure out how to make sense of that more data.
That's right. That's right. So, one easy thing you can do is just to do what's called just some normalization of the text, which is like taking, art classes and making them both art class, right? So you consolidate those two keywords and the search volume and everything associated with those into one query. So, that might take down, leave you with 87% of the amount of keywords that you had before.
Yeah. And you would do that you're consolidating to make the data easier to look through, right? But then how are you applying that then consolidated data? Is it like with reporting, or is it strategy?
With reporting strategy, Paul Shapiro released a thing. This was probably 3 or 4 years ago. That was essentially a click-through rate anomaly tool, which looked at the click-through rate for one keyword at a position with the median click-through rate for that position, right? And was it under or over? And so obviously that across, let's say 100,000 keywords gives you a prioritized list of scores that you can really easily run that and then get, maybe the top 100 opportunities that you can then go work on, right? When we get into the clustering or word embeddings, you can download pre-trained word embeddings, which are these 50, 100, or 300 dimensional vectors that have been trained on like large corpuses like Wikipedia to put information about that word in that vector. And you can assign all the keywords to those vectors, and then we do a clustering analysis, which essentially just tries to pull similar keywords together in vector space. And then we look at those groups. So that helps us go from 100,000 keywords down to maybe 100 or 150 meaningful clusters of keywords. Right.
Would an example of that be, so I actually did a little mini audit traffic review for one of the big course sites that we talked about that's out there. Yeah. And you take a keyword like learn English and English courses. Yeah. And it's not a synonym. I mean, there's certainly slight different intent there, but from the purpose of a course website, they're ranking the same page for learn English and English courses. So is that the type of clustering that you're referring to when like two different keywords map to really the same page or same intent?
Pretty much. Yeah, exactly. We want to look at, because obviously if you have a broad website like that with a ton of different subject matter, right? And especially when you're just taking on a brand new client, right? I think that process for me at least helps us pull maybe period over period data from Search Console, apply the topical clusters. So maybe we take 100,000 keywords that we have period over period data for. We define the topical clusters, and then we output that, and then we can see essentially trend or change across their topical categories and how many keywords are in each category. So I like it because it allows us to get to a really quick 30,000 foot view of ownership of by theme for a website, which is really cool.
And something else, like one thing I noticed that's interesting is a site like that, they maintain steady rankings for plural searches. So English courses, because the page has a list of courses, was more relevant, but they were losing positions and clicks on English course. That's just an example. Singular, because people in the intent there is they want an actual course. So is that like something you could do? Like, could you run an analysis and show what's our visibility clicks position for plural versus singular? Is that like a basic?
That's a basic. Yeah, I think that would be a pretty easy to code NLP task to do that.
And then
that's really cool.
Yeah, and what about like intent? So another aspect of keyword understanding that I noticed was the search for Learn Excel. If you Google that like now, it returns local results, free, and best, which implies like show me the best top ranked. But if you Google Learn Machine Learning, you get more like college courses, online courses, and not lists of best, just like general lists. So it seems like even though that's like the same type of keyword, Learn Excel, I want to learn something, and Learn Machine Learning, I want to learn something else, they have different intents implied in them, right? So is that something that this sort of analysis could figure out? Because that would have to more necessitate analyzing the results for those searches. Yeah,
I mean, that's something that I spent a lot of unfruitful time on in 2019 because, one thing that Google is a reflection of intent, right? Yeah. So they're constantly refining their results to try to guess where you have either fractured intent or just ambiguous intent, right?
Yep.
We pulled millions of keywords, randomized keywords, and pulled Google data on, I think at the time we had maybe 50 labeled features of each page.
Oh, wow.
And we just essentially tried to align and see if we could find unique intents or examples of meaningful categories of how Google displayed the different features or results on pages based on information that was in the keyword. I think in total there were about around 250 meaningful intent categories unique to the features, and then maybe I think there were some 3,000 total kind of intent feature sets to a lot of those. I don't think we got really far on that, because I think that gets me to another part of I don't think a language is there yet, and I think there's so much that you have to parse when you're looking at specific. I think you can look at specific categories, like when you do category analysis and you do look at the general themes across those keyword categories. I think you can go through, and you should put your eyes on Google and put your eyes on the page and see, how is Google treating these? Because I think, especially across the course website, you're going to have, the overall themes, and then you're going to have very similar kind of rubrics between each of the different content themes, and how Google, like you said, the online class versus online classes, and just those understandings.
Yeah.
So I think some of that you can do at a more, maybe not really a template level, but just a construct level.
Right. Fascinating stuff. I want to jump to talk a little bit, go a little deeper and talk about automation for SEO. I know this is something that you deal with a lot. In fact, you mentioned to me before the interview that you did or are doing, I believe, a webinar or something for OnCrawl about how to use automation for high ROI SEO tactics. That's all I know. And I know that this podcast episode will air after that thing for OnCrawl. So I'm wondering if you could give us the kind of high level on the high ROI SEO tactics that you talked about. Maybe we can go a little bit into some of those.
Well, we haven't done that. I think that's scheduled for next week. So we haven't actually had that podcast yet. But I think generally, one of the strongest ROI tactic we've had over the last year and a half has been just automated internal linking, where we built a tool that essentially looks for out of Search Console data, which tells us these are the keywords that if you move them up 2 positions, that will have the most material benefit, right? So
you're basically combining like impression and then maybe how many internal links currently, but also you must have some click-through rate calculation, right? Based upon
that's right. That's right. There's click-through rate calculation, and then based on the position that it is, by moving it up a couple of positions, what's the benefit from a click-through rate or total click standpoint?
Right.
So it applies that score to the calculation, and then we get a report that we go through and just really quickly proof that and make sure that there's no artifacts or anything that are incorrect. And then we feed that through a second process, which actually goes through, finds the most relevant page on the site that is currently not linking to that, and looks on the page and sees if there's a current word in that page that's really close semantically to the target phrase, to see if we could just change that, right? And if that's not the case, then it might tell us to include content, right? So include content to make this work.
That's phenomenal. And when you're thinking about internal linking, like when I think about that for e-commerce, for example, like there's very little that I would do for this sort of bespoke or like what ends up being customized internal linking on, let's see, an e-commerce product page, right? Like unless you have an area built into the template for that, like maybe related products or something like that. So when this thing is going through looking for words, are you mainly looking through informational content or like?
That's right.
Okay. So
that's right. Yeah, we've actually, that is more respective to a certain class of sites, right? Where you have more informational content.
Publishers and
you got it. We've seen, and I think it's something we've been methodical about, because it used to be kind of a long process, but now it's a relatively short process to run both of those analysis quickly in a notebook.
Yeah.
And then output that, and then we either send it to the client or we implement ourselves. But we've seen, I think the numbers were anywhere between 50 and 60% lift across websites where we've had that as a full year implementation.
Oh, wow.
So really strong results on that.
So this is something you're running sort of regularly. You're not.
You got it.
Doing
That's right.
one big giant batch of. I see.
Yeah, I mean, we run that as well as we run Paul's anomaly notebook, and then we run other internal notebooks that have the goal of we want to slowly and methodically support and align content to the best performing queries.
Yeah.
Right.
And so when I think of this just strategically or how SEO works, you take a page, right, that you find a search query and the page that you want to rank better based on that search query. Like, are we talking about adding 5 internal links to that, or like increasing the percentage? Because like some site crawls you run, it's heavily skewed towards what they have linked in the main menus for internal links and things like that, right? Like you have like probably 25 links that have the vast majority of the number of internal links, right? So how many sort of internal links are you adding to see this lift? Or what percentage? Like, are you trying to get these pages to be a higher in the percentage level of the amount of internal links that they have? Is it just getting some on them? Like, what sort of quantity of internal links are we talking about?
I think it depends on the size of the site with how often and what frequency we'll do that. But there's not a particular, I mean, obviously Google looks at links on pages differently based on where the links are placed, right? So you're
saying they might ignore the main menu links when they're weighing the internal, right? That's
right. So I mean, the thing I like about these is that they're contextual. And they're directed towards implying a signal that we want to benefit from, right? And I think it's less of a numbers game for that, rather than just a consistent application of reinforcement of ranking towards, and it's like 1,000 little nudges. Throughout the course of a year to push your pages towards signals or towards queries that are more meaningful.
Right. That's a really good point. So it's the qualitative sort of context. So if I have a page about the troy ounce, which I am working with on a client right now, I'm finding where it's in context makes sense. Maybe literally ends up with that anchor text, or maybe the surrounding text is about that.
That's right.
And maybe it's even adds value to the reader. Like they're reading that one article and they see this resource about the troy ounce, and then clicking on that is actually a value add for the user as well.
That's right.
I like that.
That's right.
So in terms of automation as well, Jose Hernando had a question about automation. He wanted to know what tasks, maybe besides this one, what tasks have you automated and have saved you the most time? And then what tasks have you tried to automate and ended up spending more time working on the automation than actually saving time?
I mean, so the link building, internal linking task has saved a ton of time. I just did released a notebook on Twitter last week, it was probably 3 weeks ago now, that allowed you to put in a topic, pretty much any topic, and then it would query the Google Trends API and look for related topics, and then do it again for each of those related topics to essentially build out just a little topical trend universe of that content, right?
That's cool.
So that was helpful for us, and it would give you, it would output the relative, I'm not sure what their metric is, but the relative importance or search importance of that along with that. So that was a recent example that was pretty helpful, because we were doing obviously a lot of searches internal, just looking for more directional trend data on where search was going related to a lot of our product categories.
Yeah.
So that was helpful.
And I've been using trends like so much since COVID, Because that's been my go-to tool is like, okay, there's no volume yet on this thing, but it's showing up in trends. So
that's right. And you see really interesting things if you put your head topics in terms of just the related topics, right?
Yeah.
So, that was one of the things is, can we automate that a little bit and just make it so instead of doing, you have to do one search and you get all the data you need instead of doing 20 searches.
Right.
We've done a lot with just reporting. Like we have a notebook that pulls each month and goes in and pulls search console query data for the past 30 days, compared period over period, and then year over year, and then just outputs the core thing. So that's a really good snapshot at the beginning of the month, like what were your key pages and or queries where you had the most click change period over period, and that's a really quick report to run. And then, I think...
is there one that you spent more time trying to build it than it actually ended up saving your time?
Well, I mean, that's probably a trade-off between either what I was telling you about the
ranking analysis.
Trying to look at Google SERP features to give some type of input on how on intent. And how they were teaching or treating intent, and then the second thing was a more of an automated keyword research pipeline.
Right.
That was a big task that had about 10 failure points with data sources we were trying to pull from.
Yeah.
That's something that's still on the wish list, but it's just a really difficult process.
Yeah. And David Sottimano, again, sorry about the name pronunciation. He had another question. What is your favorite API?
I'll say what I use the most are between SEMrush, Google NLP APIs, Search Console APIs, and then we've developed our own APIs that do things like really great quality content extraction of pages that removes like boilerplate content, as well as pulls a lot of detailed like readability, author, a lot of the different it infers a lot of metadata for each of the pages, so we can crawl sites and get a lot more what I would think accurate data than just extracting the body tag text content.
That's really cool. And then you mentioned also before we spoke today that you are developing a CI/CD testing process. That's continuous integration, continuous development. Is that what that is? CI/CD?
Yeah.
So basically, what is this testing process? I'm wondering if, I'm sure a lot of listeners would find that interesting. So what exactly is that?
So the tool essentially allows you to set up any number of what I would call sample paths, right? So you can either like if you have an extremely large site, like we have some clients with maybe 500 million URLs, you want to either take a random sample or you want to take a strategic sampling of that ensures that you have all template level pages covered, right? For some sites, like new sites, maybe you want to do more of a random sample, but let's say you have 1,000 sample paths, right?
And what do you mean by sample path? Just for my knowledge. Yeah.
Just not the domain, like 1,000 sample URLs and just the path part of the URL, right?
Oh, the folder, like the subfolders. And
yeah. So once you have those, essentially what the tool will do is allow you to put some modules together, like diff checking metadata, right? Or visually diff checking the pages, right? And essentially it will run through each of those paths or the folders append the host name. So you're looking at, we want to have Chrome go out and check the staging URL and pull the metadata information from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to do the same thing on the production URL, right? Pull the metadata information and then just see what changed, right?
I see.
And then, and then essentially go through every one of the sample URLs, right? And then report out on either expected change or non-expected change, right?
I see.
So if it's a not expected change, then it's a fail, right? So using one of the CI tools like Travis or Jenkins, like this is just a command line argument that can just be called, right? You set up your 1,000 sample URLs, and then as part of the build and deploy process, after it deploys to staging, this is automatically executed to run the testing across the 1,000 URLs.
I see.
And then your result is either it passed or it failed, right? So developers can know at that point before it gets out on either staging. We've had developers that have like checklists and they have team members and like 20 team members going through checking different pages for things, right? So it's essentially just a start into seeing if we can do a better job of at least automating that process.
Right. And I believe DeepCrawl just came out with an automator that might do something like that. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And so it sounds like this is strictly for
Developers.
This is strictly for developers, but for the scenario of checking the staging site versus the live site to predict what's going to change. Like you said, it's basically a QA before you put something live.
You got it. It's a QA, and it'll be open source.
Cool.
So that's, it's not going to be
like proprietary.
It's not going to be proprietary. Yeah.
Great. So so it's May 8th. I'm probably going to release this sometime in June 2020. Do you have a timeline on that in case people are listening to this in June and they want to go look for it?
It'll be done by June.
Okay. Yeah, and I'll put a link to the show notes. Yep.
Yeah, should be done. I'm lint testing everything now, so it should be done, I would say, in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, great. I had some questions in the agenda. I want to be sensitive to time, and I might jump around a little bit from here. And then, we have so much to talk about. There were even things that you mentioned a few minutes ago that I wanted to go in more in depth. So maybe we'll have you back on the show at some point. For instance, I use the natural language, like the free widget version, right? I use that a ton manually, but I've never used the API. So that sparked a bunch of curiosities of my own. But I do want to get to some of the other Twitter questions.
Okay.
Jumping to ranking factors and kind of just optimization in general. So Lyndon NA on Twitter, he wants to know, can you put ranking signals into sort of general buckets, right? And I think there's the popular ones out there like links, like Google will say links and content, right? Do you have sort of a general category of buckets of ranking signals that you kind of reference?
I definitely, links I think are really important. I think mentally I think about it as technical. I think about it as popularity. And then I think about it as authoritativeness, right? Or trust, right?
Yeah.
And those are, I think, the mental rubrics that I go into attack things, right? And there's a lot of sub signals and sub buckets under a lot of those.
Yeah.
Like Bill Slawski has wrote a thing, I think in February, that talked about domain knowledge domains, right?
Yep.
Where Google could take all of the websites and then just segment them into these knowledge domains that are broken, maybe even further broken up by, you have this medical knowledge domain, and then you have really authoritative, maybe mildly authoritative, and then not authoritative at all websites, right?
Yep. And you see that in the wild. Like I was doing a review for a site that does lead gen for higher ed, right? You see these a lot. Like you search like best English degrees, right? And you see like the bestcolleges.org and stuff like that ranking.
Yeah.
And for the law ones, it was all law websites ranking, not the general, everything to everybody, U.S. news, like sites like that. So is that sort of what you're referring to? There's like your topical categorical expertise, almost like having a niche website around a certain topical area. Is that kind of how you're thinking of it?
It is. I mean, I think there's no more a better example than like the mesothelioma space for this. And obviously that's the mesothelioma space.
Yeah, I might be slow at the moment, but what is that? What is that word? I don't
So
what is that?
Mesothelioma is I don't know if it still is, but it once was the highest CPC keyword.
Oh, okay.
There ever was, and it's cancer caused by
I thought it was something medical
products, right? So for years, like that, there were probably 20 companies that just built killer content and built links. That's all they did, right?
Yeah, for that
one keyword, right? Because that's the first you get. Like you go to the doctor and you get mesothelioma, then like you go home, like the first thing that you're searching is mesothelioma, right?
Right. Yep.
And if you click on a link and call somebody, like that lawyer's on a flight to you, like a minute later, right, to get you signed up, because there's so much money involved with those cases. But yeah. So you had like 20 or 30 competitors in that space just building crazy, amazing links every month and just like 20,000 word pieces of content. So everything that you could possibly do. And then at some point, like 3 or 4 years ago, you started to see actual hospitals and, actual,
doctors and
medical content coming into the top 10. So that was, that tells you that Google really has an understanding. I think that was been another thing over the last couple of years is that a lot of local, like county websites and a lot of local, or city websites, they're some of the worst websites in the world from an SEO perspective. They're horrible. Chamber of Commerce and all that stuff. Yeah, they're gross, but like Google now understands what authority is for those sites. It's almost funny because in the past I would really highly prioritize like these big grand technical fixes or like design improvements and stuff like that. But if you're dealing with truly an authority on a subject, they can rank you see it nowadays. Like I see some truly, like you said, awful websites ranking for stuff. Yeah. In fact, there was a website I tweeted about a little while ago called canifreezethis.com, I think is what it was. And they rank for hundreds and hundreds of keywords like, can I freeze bacon? Can I freeze, all these different types of food? I think that was it. I'll put it in the show notes. Yeah. But it was this hideous, ugly website, basically no design whatsoever. But because they built this like resource of information around just this one concept of can you freeze something, they rank really well for all that stuff. Yeah. And it's what is the phrase tighten on topic? Like no matter everything you hear about SEO, I think that's still very similar today. I mean, I've heard that phrase for 10 years and it's still the same. Yeah. And it's still meaningful. Lyndon also wants to know, and I'm curious too, what is your take on EAT, expertise, authority, trust from the quality raters guidelines? Is that, I have my own soapbox. I could get on with this. In fact, I just published a blog post, which I'll put in the show notes, where I go on a slight rant about that. But what is your take on this whole, a lot of SEOs are obsessed with EAT. I am not one of them. I have my own take on it, but what do you think about EAT? I think you have to mentally compartmentalize quality rater guidelines into something that's a benchmark, right? Yeah. That it's a benchmark. Number one, you have very inexperienced people that you're saying, hey, we want you to go through and we want you to rate these websites, right? So there's a lot of information that you have to give people who aren't experienced to the web, because SEOs have seen everything, right?
Yeah.
At one point I worked for legal SEO, and I got to a point where I didn't need to do like backlink analysis anymore. Like I could just dump their referring domains and then tell you in 5 minutes, pretty much, do I need to worry about this or not? Right.
Right.
It was very quick, but like you have very unsophisticated people to the web, specifically, and you're trying to give them a lot of information so that they have context with which to review the web and understand what is quality and what is not quality.
Yep.
So I think a lot of the quality raters documentation is to ensure that the results of algorithm changes are measured effectively and then with the right stick, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they're as instructive for that should be the holy Bible with which we measure our sites against.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's kind of a reflection thing though, because the bias that's we've seen in machine learning algorithms, right?
Yeah.
And some of the articles about the maybe the gender or the
demographic bias,
or racial bias that's imparted by what the information that the machine is trained on, right?
Yeah.
So I think it can have a reflexive effect, right? In that if that's the stick they're measuring the quality of their results by, then those results may tend more towards decisions that are made with that information.
Right.
But I don't think you can read that and say, this is what we need to do to our website.
They're not ranking factors.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
So Victor Pan, who I believe is with HubSpot, or was at one point, he has a question which I actually want to figure out if you know what he means here. So his question is, are there any optimization techniques, in quotes, that tend to have organic traffic regress to the mean, in quotes, after a period of time? So can you explain his question, and then do you have any sort of thoughts on that?
I think he means that essentially starts out with maybe either a strong positive benefit, but over time regresses.
Oh, so diminishing value type of thing.
Okay. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like updating dates, refreshing content, you see that. Posting new content, especially in news verticals, you see that.
Yep.
I think discover and pushing social and pushing interaction to discover posts. I think you see some of that because those posts typically don't last that long. I don't know if you can necessarily say that's regression to the mean, but I think
it's not evergreen the way keyword-based content is for SEO.
That's right. That's right. Maybe some schema stuff that we've tested in the last year. I think we've seen strong initial results once it was implemented that got balanced out.
Yeah. I think one thing that comes to mind for me is once you get a couple external links from a certain domain or maybe style of domain, category domain, there's a diminishing return there, it seems like,
Agreed. Yeah.
Very interesting question. So we're going to go slightly lightning round through a couple more here. David Satimano again wants to know what software is missing to you in the SEO space. Like, is there a certain type of software? You build a lot. Like, it probably like when you think of something, you just build it. But is there anything that you really wish there was an actual official tool that would do something?
I wish there was a tool that did a better job of giving. Well, I would say 3 tools. Number one, a better job of giving more esoteric content to more blue ocean content to rank for, right? Most keyword research or keyword gap tools, you see everybody running to Google Trends, right? We have a change here. It just tells you that we don't really have a good tool for surfacing what's popular now. or what's happening.
Or like, do you mean almost like predicting what will be popular?
Or just more real time. For a lot of the new stuff, it's like the first to be able to cover or regurgitate an existing story. But I think, what was it?
We've been running into that with COVID. I mean, that's like I was saying earlier, is COVID has brought about all these new searches and keywords that haven't happened before, or to the degree that they are now. It'd be nice to have something that surfaced something like that.
Either surface. I think it would be very difficult to be accurate, predictive, but Bill Hartzer released an article, was it last week, where he talked about that he essentially looked at different COVID queries across the different keyword research tools, right?
Yeah.
And some of them, had no change in data, like those were important phrases at all. And these are the tools that 95% of SEOs have to go look for trends, right? And then obviously we lost the clickstream data, which was another source of more kind of real-time data. So I think that's a big area that's important. On top of that, I think I want something that does a better job of tying changes across the website to performance in a more automated way.
Right. Like, for example, you remove render blocking resources, right? Does that improve page speed? But then did that impact rankings across that set of pages or something?
That's right. Is there something that you can tie either site level or page level changes or measurements, right? Where I know that this happened on this day, and then 5 days from now, something happened, and a way to mathematically, or at least with as much certainty as possible, correlate the cause and effect there.
That's very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's an area that feels like it should be possible to at least put something out that's useful.
Yeah. You almost need to layer in, because exactly. Garrett French had spoken to me about this. He's the link building guy. Yeah. He has some tools. He spoke to me about doing that with link building, right? And the layer that I recommended to him that I think you'd have to layer into that is, okay, you made a change, but then a layer of like maybe log file data to see when did Google pick up on that change.
That's right. It's messy. It's messy. You have to layer in data, and it is a bit messy to do that. But
you should still be able to move towards something meaningful.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. But I think that's the holy grail for me, is that you can make changes, and then it's not like we make changes, we chronicle the URLs, what was changed, right? And then we'll schedule that out, right? For when we anticipate whatever our crawl rate is that Google will have picked up and processed those changes. And then we manually go through and have someone do a more qualitative review of what was the benefit from those changes, right?
Yeah.
But that's a lot of time and effort. And plus, I think a lot of SEOs don't do a really good job of logging changes across their site, or developers when they make pushes or new deployments. What was changed, what was deployed. I would maybe 1 out of every 5 new clients we have, when you ask for like a historical list, it's like, I think I can get that together, right? And then it's normally just, I did this month, right? But there's nothing that aligns where you can say this happened and we see this result here. So I think more consistency, or a tool that could do that more consistency. And I think Content King may be the tool that could most likely do that. And I think it would be incredible.
Got another question from Victor Pan, and we'll maybe do a couple more. to wrap things up in a moment. But he wanted to also know, how do you model the impact of SEO specific changes can have on business ROI? So slightly different question, but do you do anything there to sort of tie in the SEO changes to actual business results?
For specific clients, we do that. Normally, what we'll do is we'll take, we have a analytics forecasting model that uses a forecasting algorithm from Facebook called Facebook Profit. But essentially, we'll take historical data, and that can be in the form of either conversions or entrances or whatever, any kind of time series data that you have, and you have a good amount of history for, right? And then we'll use that to essentially forecast out a baseline, right? Yep. So if we just keep things as they are and don't do anything, this is more than likely going to be what the next 6 to 12 months will be like.
Very cool.
From there, we'll try to estimate gain, right? And then layer on gain. So here's your baseline. Here's gain estimate with this strategy. And obviously that has to be, you have to look at the implementation cycle, the time for it to actually be picked up. So it's like you're layering those on at different times. But let's say you forecast next year and we do this in the first quarter, this in the second quarter, this in the third quarter, this in whatever. Then you have to put dates of estimation of when you're going to start to see the benefit from that. So that's a baseline, and then layering on expected gain based on when you expect them to be implemented.
Very cool. Couple quick fun questions to wrap things up. So
you
can answer this if you want to. I know it seemed like on Twitter maybe you didn't want to, but Cole Watts wanted to know what JR stands for.
I am a junior, and my name is Marvin Wayne. I'm the second son in my family, and somehow I got the Marvin Wayne name. And the junior. But yeah, people called me JR from when I was 6, and then I'd go to school and they'd call me Wayne. And then one day I was just like, I would rather be called JR.
Yeah. Huh. Interesting. And then Jose Hernando wanted to know, if you could go back in time, what areas of learning would you have started sooner as an SEO or developer?
Math.
Math. Like math, basic like algebra and like
linear algebra, that stuff. Yeah. I think like that's the part I struggle with the most, reading through a lot of the machine learning workflows, just to kind of understand, because you have to take them from mathematical notation, and then you have to look at the code, right? And how they translated the mathematical notation and how that's in code, so that you can understand how it traces through, right?
I see.
Sometimes, I think I've done that enough to where I understand enough of it. But yeah, I think if I could go back to when I was 20, I would probably start out in either information retrieval or language generation.
Yeah. And for anybody listening, like if you're sitting there thinking, I know everything about SEO, or like maybe you're thinking the opposite, which is like, how can I take my SEO further? Information retrieval is something I know, like Don Anderson's into that a lot. Like a lot of SEOs don't think about, let me go to actually the core of what SEO is.
Yeah.
It's a great thing to study. And then last fun question, I guess Jose must know that maybe you're a beer fan. He wanted to know lager, IPA, pale ale, or stout.
Order.
Okay. That's what I would say too, actually, out of all those. That or IPA. I'm not a big beer person, but when I do drink that, it's order IPA. So cool. Well, JR, fantastic discussion. Thank you so much for joining us on Experts on the Wire, episode 118. And we'll talk to everyone next time.